welcome. So the next presentation is about to start. So we're gonna have a presentation with Simon Husslein, who is gonna talk to us about NFT and watches. So Simon actually develops product, furniture, installation, and spatial design. He has realized several projects in Zurich, Tokyo, London, and Shanghai, and given lectures at various universities. He worked very closely with Hannes Wettstein in his Zurich studio for 6 years, where he actually shaped his work as a creative director and member of the board. In 2015, he founded Atelier Simon Husslein, and since 2017, he is a professor of interior design here at HEAD Geneva. So again, now he's going to talk to us about NFT watches, and welcome, Simon. Thank you.
Thank you for the introduction. And thank you for the invitation for today's talk. So I'm going to talk about a collection I designed for Beyer, the watch reseller from Zurich. But before I do, I quickly introduce myself to what I do besides designing NFT watches, which is a very new topic, obviously. So I come very much from the field of industrial design, and during the past 20 years, I've been fortunate enough to work for very interesting brands within the watch business, such as Braun, Ventura, a Swiss manufacturer that was very innovative, and Nomos Glashütte, which I designed several watches for. And just to understand a bit my general background as a designer, I'm really curious in like these architectural questions of the design of the watch. So I'm really into the solving of the tiniest fraction of a millimeter to reach the most beautiful or the most refined details for the case of the watch. And in that position, I'm also fortunate enough to become a member of the jury for the Red Dot Design Award for many years. And it's a pleasure to really follow the different trends and changes in the design of watches. Now, for NFT, obviously that's a very, very different story, because there is so many different factors to take into consideration. So I tried, before I show some pictures, I tried to make a bit of sense of what that is. And to start, I would like to quote James Turrell with a very interesting sentence. He said that whatever you do, it only works if someone catches your pass. You can't just make art and expect it to be great just by itself. And that, I think, we can use for many other things. So my general question about doing watches within the NFT realm is like, who's gonna catch it and why? So I made a very simple graph about, at least from my perspective, there might be different opinions in the room, but from my perspective, the kind of main ingredients of what makes someone buy a real watch, like a physical watch. So obviously there is the brand itself, and their gravity, their story, their history. There is the narrative about the watch, like, is it the watch that went to the moon, or is it the watch that was worn by this famous actor, etc.? So there is a lot of things that just, articulate around the object. And obviously there is the value of it in terms of the material. It's made from gold, or someone spent 1,000 hours putting it together. And that kind of, frames the design, which you have to like. But there is so much more about it than just the pure design itself. Now, when we go to the NFT world, obviously material and designing or making ours they don't have value anymore. No one's going to ask how much time you spend on your computer to design the watch or to make the digital object. It's very different emotional connection. So from my point of view, it just increases dramatically the question of the brand, like who's responsible for it, which company or which creative individual, and also the narrative in the sense of what is so special about this particular object. And yeah, you still have to like it. There is still a design issue, but yeah, I think the other 2 points, they really just grow. So why would you buy this NFT watch? Are you a collector, or is it meant to be worn in the so-called metaverse? So what we can see today is already an existing community that is using the next generation technologies to actually be in those virtual spaces, to spend time, to socialize, etc. It's obviously still a relatively small number of people, and yeah, it's maybe more nerds than like the general public. However, we can see the shift in how that is going to become much more normal for many, many people to go and spend time in virtual worlds for meetings, for learning certain machines or usages, etc. So while this is already happening, it's very clearly predicted that this will be much, much larger very time in a not so far future. And obviously, the question one could have is, what is this woman wearing on her arm in the metaverse or in this kind of digital worlds? And yeah, that's a possibility that those NFT watches will get to this point, but it's clearly a prediction at the moment. No one really knows. And with this collection we did, it's kind of, you know, in the pre-steps of that kind of vision. So just quickly to introduce myself as also a space designer or like an interior architect. I'm teaching here at the School of Art and Design for scenography and interior architecture. And from the past more than 3 years that we have been working with VR, we can clearly predict that this kind of topic will become a very large relevance for many brands in the future, maybe all at some point, that you have to include the question of where things happen, who you are as a place in the future. And we have been investing quite some time into narrating possibilities of new typologies of places that can be branded differently and that have a very different aesthetic from what you would expect a space in VR to be like. So today, we just talked about it with Guillaume. It's more like a replication of our physical world, but that's also going to change very sure. So we did run quite a few projects. This is one from 2019, together with the USM Foundation, where the students developed physical spaces to host a virtual experience. This is one of the projects that you could see inside the headset. And from this great success we had with this project, we continued to explore more the spaces itself rather than the physical part. So we worked with more classes on the question of how to articulate these abstract rooms that you could spend time inside. And we just finished another project about a similar topic that then aims to become a showroom, in this case for furniture. And we're gonna present the results of this project in Milan in June at the Salone del Mobile. But now back to why I'm here. About half a year ago, I was asked to contribute some designs to an NFT watch collection that Beyer was planning together with a creative agency from Zurich. You can find the results of this collaboration on this website if you're interested. It's called the Time Warp Collection, and I contributed 3 different watches to that collection. So as I explained before, if you are a watch designer like myself and you're really, close to the object and to the materiality and how it's manufactured, how it's polished, like all these things, you're wondering like, what's the point? Like, what am I gonna do in VR or in digital, where everything is possible? So I took 3 different paths. The first one is called Continuum, and it was inspired by the so-called one-liner. I don't know if you know about this concept, but it's the idea to draw something from just one continuous line. And you can do that obviously with a pen on a piece of paper, but there is an animal that does it in 3D. So the silk moths, they build a cocoon about just one single thread. And I took that as a challenge to make a watch in the same manner. So for quite some time, I spent time inside like a VR headset to build a watch out of one continuous thread. You can see a kind of view how it looks when you are wearing the headset. Obviously, it's a bit different when you're actually in VR, because you really can work around the object and walk around and go underneath and really draw the surface. And then when you're rendering it, it has a very unique aesthetic. And these are some of the pictures that were taken during the design process. And obviously, it's a typology of watch that couldn't exist in the real world, as it's not going to show the time, obviously. But in VR or in the digital realm, it has a different quality from my point of view. So this watch will be released in various versions and different material options. And I believe this is one of the ones they're gonna drop at the very end. The second watch I call Pocket X, and it's trying to go back to the archetype of watch that Beyer, as the representing brand, sold at the very beginning of their existence. So when they started selling watches 262 years ago, the first retailer in the world to do so in this manner, still existing today in Zurich at the Bahnhofstrasse. They were selling pocket watches. That's the typology of watch that existed at that time. And I thought it was a nice opportunity to do a pocket watch like I would love to have it, which in this case becomes an object that is both, this archetype from the past, but using a state-of-the-art modern display. However, just to give it a high-resolution monitor or display, I thought was not the same reference that I was looking for. So in this proposal, the display would be made from golden applicants that you would then switch on and off. So it's a kind of twist between the old, the past, and the now or the future. And this, again, is one of the versions that's going to be a part of this collection. And the last one, I said before how much I believe the narrative about the watch or the topic within NFT is so essential. So I asked myself, which might be one of the most famous watches in pop culture. And yeah, I don't know if you remember this particular scene from Pulp Fiction when this watch is handed to the young Bruce Willis as a gift from his passed away father. So this watch has a very particular story behind it, which makes it part of pop culture from my point of view. And we were analyzing the design of the watch that you can see within the movie, and we wanted to recreate it as an NFT watch. So you could own at least a digital replication of it. I found out that there is a kind of a scene of people that look for this typology of watch in the real world. So there is replications and kind of old Lancet watches. But yeah, we thought for the NFT version of it, we should tackle a problem that from the movie watch at least might have been an improvement from the design point of view. So we made an integrated watch crown instead of the very large extended one, and changed the design elements to a point where we were happy with the new version of it. So there is different versions now existing, and this one, again, using the digital tools to simulate the kind of original design from the movie. And I believe, again, this is one of the versions that's going to be realized in the end within the collection. So that was my little talk. I'm happy to answer any question or have a discussion about whether all of this makes sense or not. Thank you for your attention.
Thank you a lot, Simon. Yes, sure. About your presentation, extremely interesting, like about your work on NFT and how you took this kind of subject. Is there like any question on the room first before we go on a debate? No? Yes, sure.
Hi, my name is 16 Crutchfield. I work for an NFT platform called Wise.art here in Geneva. You said right at the beginning that you were unsure that if people in the metaverse, when they have their meetings or whatever, would wear different items. But I think it's already a certainty in that fashion has already taken on that role, no? That people can buy Prada or Gucci bags and wear them in the metaverse. So why are you doubting that people won't wear jewelry and watches?
Can you hear me? Yeah. I don't doubt that there will be a large way of articulating what, like, our personality within the digital realm, similar to how we do it here in the physical world. I just believe that this will become something very different to how we do it here, much more related to what is possible. So what we see today, this kind of, a digital sneaker, they're kind of inspired, and you see the watches I did, they're inspired by what we already know and what we value for very physical reasons. And I'm very sure over time there will be very different archetypes of usage, and therefore also of expression of personality within those worlds that are impossible to imagine from us today. And also they will be very much driven by the people who are actually using those worlds. So yeah, that's more what I try to say is, even, I can say this is going a very different route. I wouldn't know what to propose for that. I'm not part of that daily community. I'm not really using the technologies to replace anything I'm doing physically yet. So yeah, that's going to be very interesting also in respect to a younger generation going to become central in our world, that doesn't distinguish anymore, at least valuing in a difference between what's real physical real and real virtual real. For them it's more a question of, what do I need this for, what do I need that for? And once they get into power, obviously the landscape that we can imagine today, where we say, yeah, but this is the real stuff, and this is kind of a subcategory, that's going to change for sure.
Does anybody else has questions?
Yes, Mia was very interested about how you explain the shift between the value of the watch that before was based on the time spending and the value of the material, and now doesn't count anymore, because what we want is only like the storytelling and the branding and what are we going to buy it. Do you think like there is a possibility that in the future this kind of time spending and material value will be transferred to kind of a coding and parameterability of the watch, to see like, wow, this is like kind of crazy NFT watch because it offers such like specific characteristic that we can use in different world, and there is like a switch about the possibility of the watch in terms of meta medium or in kind of transfer in different like environment?
Very interesting question. There might be such new values that are connected to the technology that creates a certain effect, that you need a lot of calculation, and only because you have these crazy computers that can do it, you can present an object that does this certain thing. For instance, like the Mandelbrot process of making a 3D object with this kind of super complex calculations. You need like a super computer to do that in real time, if it's even possible today. So having such complexity might become a value factor in the future. Interesting enough, it kind of goes a bit against another meta trend that we have, which is sustainability, where we realize we shouldn't just continue doing more and more crazy and more complex. So yeah, I'm curious on how these two kind of opposite poles might influence each other. But as I showed in my little summary, I feel the presence of the brand and the creator, like who's responsible for it and why and how did they do what they did, that's like a more prominent factor, probably, I guess.
And also on the subject, on the creation that you show, it's always like kind of a unique product that target like a specific way of thinking and conception. And every time on your proposal, if I may write, you got like a specific conception that create like a unique result. But in the NFT world, things start to shift with conception of collection. Now we don't think in terms of unique result, but more on the process. process and of the collection based on some characteristic and some trait. So we design more like what's the smart contract and how we design this collection. And on your work with Beyer, is it something that was on discussion, or for Beyer, like they still want no, we need like one object and we need this kind of, this is the design. The design cannot be like this kind of the collection, and this shift between the where is the art and where is the object.
The collection consists of not just different designs, but also a lot of different variations of each design. So it's quite a wide range of objects, or but still we're in this early moment in time where all of this just kind of starts. And I think also for the people working with Beyer and the agency, they had to, find ways to do something today, which, I mean, we can predict and we make super cool renderings of how we think it will be next year or in 2 years, but they're doing this for real now. So they had to, I wouldn't say compromise, but they had to take the existing technologies as they are, as a basic decision-making starting point. So I think it will evolve quite away from that, but the way the collection is presented, in the end, it kind of relates to how you do it today in relation to the community that is interested in such objects and the platforms existing now. And yeah, where this goes over time, we'll see.
And how did you accompany like Beyer on this collection? What was their main idea, and why first of all they want to do like this shift to NFT world? And how did you join them on the story? And did they put like some barrier or something like, no, we cannot do this, we cannot do that? In terms of design, we are pretty far away from what they did originally, and this is where it started to be interesting. How did they manage this in terms of design and branding and all these kind of elements?
There wasn't a restriction from the design point of view, and I would say I took a relatively conservative standpoint in how I articulated my objects. Other creators were more like crazy or more visionary, or however you would call it. However, I think the quality of the collection as it is now is, through its diversity, trying to give space for different predictions or positions, let's say, from the various creators. But what's very, very much missing for sure is a kind of larger dialogue about this topic that you would have. I mean, if you look around to a fair like this, the know-how within the watch industry is unbelievably large. There is so much, depth for each tiny topic you would ask, where so many people in the past made a point, made an innovation, talked about it, improved things, etc. And within, this NFT world, we're just like, this is the first drop in the ocean of what's gonna come. So yeah, I think we didn't load our shoulders with too much weight. We're just like, let's, start doing something, get the conversation started, and see where this is going, and if it becomes relevant at some point, or how it will become relevant. And yeah, I think for such an old house like Beyer, it's quite brave to take on this topic and say, we have been pioneering before, let's pioneer once more in this way. So yeah, I think it's very interesting.
Yeah, I think it's a very good description about the mood of the watches industry, just like to try, because they don't want to miss the train. But yes. Is there like any other question? Okay, so right on time. So I guess we are going to meet next time will be like 2:30 with Francesco, right here. So meet you at 2:30. Thanks everybody.